Hey everybody, it's Ari again. We're here for the wrap up with this Wild and Cuddle Thundercats deck. Yeah, that seems like the correct adjective, pronoun, noun. I don't know, part of speech. So the deck has performed well once again. I do think we would have made 5-0 had we not had. I do think we would have made 5-0, but we did 4-1, and I 4-1 is a respectable performance. It is money. It's not perfect, but is what it is. I've so some of y'all may have noticed between I want to say round 3 and round 4, a day had passed. Hence the different clothes and all that. In that day, I had spoken with a few people. I've showed them the lists, and I told them this is the deck I'm taking up, and I've shown them the deck tech before it had gone up on YouTube, and I've received some feedback about this deck already. I've had some people tell me that they don't like Grim Lavamancers. I understand why one would not like Grim Lavamancer. It is probably your slowest creature. Um, Grim Lavamancer gives you like a 2, 3, 4 for 1 sometimes in certain matchups, and while you're not exactly the card advantage type of deck, it is nice to have that. Now, we don't always. If we can't afford the luxury of having said nice thing, it is good that it is just it deals with Tarmogoyf, which is one of the biggest ways to beat this deck. It does deal with Ensnaring Bridge, which is another way to beat this deck. Um, that being said, if there was anything somebody wanted to do to make the deck more streamlined, I guess is the way to put it, more burn focus, I would recommend cutting probably these cards, maybe even these. Um, I'd recommend cutting these cards for main deck copies of this card. Um, Maybe one or two main deck copies of this. Probably like a Shard Volley. I would direct you to the Josh Utter Layton main deck from Charlotte Grand Prix, I think. He played like a Shard Volley, two Skull Cracks, two Helix, and his sideboard involved Core Firewalkers and Blood Moons. Now, I understand what that package is for. It does beat Jund down pretty bad because Core Firewalker is essentially just a bear that beats him down in that matchup. Pro Red can't get hit by anything except for the Abrupt Decay, and their Abrupt Decay is really stretched really far because it has to target the Blood Moon that you're bringing in as well. I personally don't think I want to be playing that type of game plan. As a burn deck, I never want to try to Blood Moon somebody out. I've always not. I always just try to kill them. I'm trying to not sound facetious. I'm always just trying to do damage to them instead of trying to Blood Moon them out. Now, I do understand Blood Mooning someone out is a great way to end the game on the spot. However, he does play in his list. He had Rending Volley and no Path, and again, I understand why. Path, obviously gets you your basics for your Blood Moon. Your Blood Moon will not be as devastating. Rending Volley is good. It's a good magic card. We even played against Merfolk. It would have been splash good there. But Path is just more universally good, in my opinion. Path also comes in against Bloom. It also comes in against Poison, as we saw in that last match. It did a lot of work against Poison. The unconditional removal, I think our opponent was counting on Wild Defiance being able to save him from all of our removal. That's the only reason I could imagine he had Wild Defiance in his deck after sideboard. I just think the utility of Path is too powerful. It's too strong. It's too good. Path to Exile is, it's almost Swords to Plowshares. It's so good. Let's see what else. What else feedback have we received? I've heard from a local friend of mine who was telling me about Rest in Peace over Relic of Progenitus. Now, if you do like the Rest in Peace, it is much better at dealing with Tarmogoyf, and I do believe it comes in against the Grixis matchups and the Thought Scour matchups and things of that nature. You could probably even bring it in against Twin to poo on Snapcaster a little bit. I do think it's more absolute graveyard hate. 2 mana over 1 mana is now I'd rather cast 1 mana spell over 2 mana spell, but I think the absoluteness of Rest in Peace is more is worth the extra mana. The only reason I wouldn't play it in my version is because of said Grim Lavamancer. I I hmm. I'm trying to think of how I want to word this. Because turning Grim Lavamancer into a 1/1, of course that's bad, but that's not like. If Grim Lavamancer is a 1/1, that means their Goyfs are 0/1s, and I should be okay with that. And that's probably a fair trade. However, I like my Grim Lavamancer to be able to deal damage. Now, I did say in the deck tech, this relic could be anything. Rest in Peace is included. I don't know if I mentioned Rest in Peace in the deck tech, but I completely agree. This could very feasibly be Rest in Peace. Gaddock Teague has septupled in price since last night, so I don't think that's a viable option anymore. Not that the price should be keeping you from playing something. I mean, if Gaddock Teague was worth playing, I'd play it, but I don't personally like it. In this deck, at least, if I was playing a more hateful deck, I would. No, please go away, Papa. Please, I'm doing something. Other notes to share about this deck that I've received. Let's see. Can't really think of anything. I've had some people ask me about Zero Rift Bolt, and I wanted to. I think I clarified that in another in match 4, maybe match 3. Rift Bolt is by far the worst card in our deck. It's bar none the worst card in our deck, and it comes out in almost every matchup. However, it is a Game 1 card. It is in line with what we are trying to do Game 1, and when our opponent has a lot of dead cards in hand and he's not... if their main deck is not specifically ready for burn, Rift Bolt is good. Rift Bolt is fine. It gets boarded out a lot. You guys know that. You've seen me. A lot. Do not be afraid to board out a land in the aggro matchups. In the mirror, in the in any aggro matchup, any matchup that you don't believe your opponent is trying to play a long game and you're not trying to play a long game. And I just don't be afraid to board out mountain or two if they're not a path deck. If they're burn, I would leave at least one mountain, maybe second mountain, but I would leave some number of mountain. Do not cut all of them. I guess in these videos, I haven't cut more than one mountain, but there are certain matchups. Bloom Titan, for example, I'd probably cut a second mountain. Against Ad Nauseam, if that deck still exists, I'd probably cut second mountain. Pure racing strategy decks. I don't care what you're doing, I'm doing my thing. If I played against the Jeskai Ascendancy deck at all, I think I'd cut a second mountain. And these are for spells, obviously, not just for like cut mountains to cut mountains. Trying to think what else I can provide as far as information goes. As far as sideboarding packages go, there's a lot of ways you can do it. Core Firewalker is one way. Dragon's Claw is another way. I prefer Lightning Helix for the mirror. Some people are playing some Searing Blaze on the side for said mirror. I'm currently flirting with my brain, flirting with the idea of playing a number, at least maybe one main deck Lightning Helix for. I did mention in the earlier deck tech about leveling and things that beat other things and where meta is and metagaming and all that, and might be too deep, but I think enough people see that Tron is the level 0, and maybe we'll try to play Burn to beat Tron, and maybe it's worth playing at least one Lightning Helix main deck to try to hedge in that kind of matchup. That's it's completely possible that this is too deep and that's wrong, but even when Lightning Helix is bad, it's still damage off the top, it still gains you life. I guess I'm just listing the things that it does, which is not a good reason to play a card. You can point it at a creature, which is not something you do with everything. Your life total doesn't matter in a lot of matchups. It actually matters in very few matchups. But I don't think... It is definitely a luxury. It's not... I don't think it's... I wouldn't call it a luxury we can't afford, because our mana base can definitely support it now that we're up to 19 lands. I do believe the mana base can support it. The main deck cut might be a Rift Bolt. Maybe we just like do something of this nature. something like that, and then we could even play like another Grim in the sideboard and like Rest in Pieces because that's more in like our wheelhouse. I've oh yes. Someone asked me what I thought of Abbott yesterday. No, I do not like Abbott. I understand why. I've seen players who I've seen burn players whose opinions I respect test with one or two Abbott. I have tested two Abbott in the past. It is not the amount. Uh, hmm. In standard, there's more misses that you can hit, but the misses are less devastating. In modern, for example, if we're stuck on two and we slam an Abbott and it's not one of our 19 land and it's a burn spell instead, it's harder. I'm trying to not just strictly explain how the cards read and how they're going to play out. I'm trying to give like at least one level of depth into it. But like Abbott bricks a lot harder in modern than it does in standard. Because in like standard, you miss a spell, you can your opponent just has Siege Rhinos or you just have burn spells and you can draw through it and you can draw through cards a lot easier in standard. In modern, if you have dead cards, it's much more difficult to draw through them. That is like one of the reasons to play this deck. Your opponent's going to have some dead cards against you and you can draw through them. Or he can't draw through them and you can because you have 3 points per card. Other things worth debating: Flames of the Bloodhand. I've heard good feedback on. I don't want a 3-mana burn spell. If I do, it's going to be Exquisite Firecraft. I can't imagine anything I've missed about talking. Maybe I was a little light on talking about my mana base. I did have to re-record the deck tick a few times because the video kept messing up. I'll just go over it one more time. We're on 2 shock of each. I don't want a third. I've seen people play thirds. If you are going to play more of any shock, the way I would rearrange your mana would be if you were playing Core Firewalker, double white is much more important to you. So maybe cutting a mountain for a Sacred Foundry is probably good there. But that is if you have said double white spells. You don't want to have... you don't want to be in a situation where all of your white sources have to be in play to cast your Core Firewalker, and that's essentially what you're going to be setting up if you play this kind of mana base and Core Firewalkers in this area. 2 Copperline Gorge, they're insane. They've been great. As y'all have seen in the videos, they've been good for me. 3 Mountains, I do get pathed a lot. Well, if you're getting pathed a lot, you're probably losing that game anyway. I'd like having a mountain to get. I've played 18 lands for a while. Not that I didn't like it, but I missed 19. And 3rd Mountain has been good to me. It is completely possible that 3rd Mountain should maybe be another fetch, but I want to be a little bit more prepared. Not that I'm not prepared to play against a burn deck. I am ready. Obviously, I have helixes and we have all the things that we have. But I just want to have less painful mana, if that's possible at all. And I think, the mana with this deck is, really tight, because, obviously, everything is super mana intensive. I think the only colorless mana symbol we have is Riftbolt, and that's not, it's not a real... Pyrite Spellbomb, I guess, is colorless, and Relic, I guess, is colorless. Well, there's these. But y'all catch my drift. Our deck is very color intensive. So I just don't. I want to word this properly. Excuse me for collecting my thoughts for a second. I don't believe it's worth it to have another green or white source for the cost of making my mana more painful, because my deck is already consistent enough that I feel like I have all the color sources when I need it. Now, obviously, we kept a one-lander in one of the last matches, and I believe we got there. No, we didn't get there. No, we did. We drew another Goblin guy and then Lava Spiked them. There's obviously the times where you draw one land and you have to keep one land, and obviously you want another colored source. But I believe the amount of times that my mana base has lost me a game is greater than the amount of times that I've been color screwed as opposed to land screwed. If I'm land screwed, then there's you have one land in play and you're losing because you have one land in play. Color screwed is like I have 3 mountains and 4 Boros charms. That's color screwed, and I don't know if screwed is a polite, correct way to put it, but I think y'all know what I'm talking about. As far as the Kird Ape instead of Eidolon goes, I do agree Kird Ape is more mana efficient, and it is probably better against not probably, it is better against the Pyroclasms of the field. Eidolon is worth a lot of points of damage, and there are certain matchups where, Poison for example, like Poison, where if I didn't have Eidolon in my deck, it'd be a harder win. Anything that's trying to kill you with a combo, if you don't have Eidolon in your deck, you have a very hard avenue to win. You're just not able to get all the cards out of your hand fast enough to get your opponent dead. And Eidolon is worth a lot of points of damage in those kinds of matchups. And I don't want to turn myself into a more zoo-heavy deck, because then I'm turning on my opponent's removal more. The same can be said for Wild Nacatl. We are turning on our opponent's removal by playing things like Wild Nacatl. But in those removal-heavy matchups, like Jund and like Abzan, we do board little kitty cat out for other things. I think I've touched on everything that I've thought to touch on and was mentioned. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask me over the video, or ask me on Facebook if you know me on Facebook. My Moto name and my real name and my YouTube name are all my actual full name, Arya Ruhi. So feel free to get in touch with me. I'll be at the Open in Cincinnati, trying to start off the year right by crushing, and hopefully you'll all be seeing a lot more of me. I've had a lot of positive feedback on these videos, and it's quite flattering. And y'all get a tan man to blush sometimes, and it's pretty embarrassing. And I do think I'm going to be making more videos, and I do think I'm going to be on the grind a little bit more this year. So, not that I wasn't on the grind last year. Believe you me, we were out there. Y'all know. We've been out there grinding. But we'll be doing more videos, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys more often. And it's been a lot of fun, and this was a fine learning experience, and we got to make a little cash out of it. I'll see you guys in Cincy. Worst comes to worst, just come say hey to me. I always like making new friends. You all seem cool because you watch my videos, so you have to be cool. All right, you guys take care and have yourselves a good night. And I guess New Year's is tomorrow, so have yourselves a great New Year's. And I'll see you guys in Cincinnati. Farewell for now.